Okay, we are live.
Namaskara. Good evening to one and all. BSKBA Association, popularly known as Gokul, is a Mumbai-based 96-year-old charitable trust. We have a community center at Sion and a home for senior citizens at Nerul, Navi Mumbai. With a member base of 5,000, the association has been actively conducting religious, cultural, and social events at both these locations for members to meet and greet each other. We launched a new initiative, Sambhashana, an interview series in June 2021. The idea behind this is to talk to achievers within our community and outside. The aim of these series is to understand their journey and inspire us, the youth of BSKB, to achieve more and grow in whichever field we choose to. Life is always a series of ups and downs. How do we tackle these difficulties and turn them into opportunities for success is what we need to learn from these stalwarts. For our seventh episode, we have an IIM Calcutta gold medalist, the CEO of Paints and Coating Skill Council, a philanthropist, a voracious reader, a tabla artist, and a family man. He inspires us with all his actions, and we cannot wait to know more about him. To interview him, we have our active Youth Wing member, Sankeert Bhargav. Sankeert is a graduate in engineering from Don Bosco and is passionate about new technology. A narrator and a debater who has won several accolades, his goal is to eventually work for things that are beyond money. Welcome, Jagdish Uncle and Sankeert, to Sambhashana. We are really honored to have you. Over to you, Sankeert.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priyanjali. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Perfect. Great. Okay. So anyway, before we start off, Jagdish Uncle, I just want to give a quick introduction about yourself to the audience as well. So what I have known about you through the small conversation that we already had, right, is mainly about the fact that how much have you achieved till now in your life and how humble you are about it, right? Like I was just reading through your CV as well, and I got to know that you have won a lot of awards, which also include the Udyog Rural Award as well, which I think is the highest level of award any person can get in the expertise, right? Like I was just going through every other person who has actually won the award, and one of them is also Motilal Oswal himself, right? So that's why I got to know that you have an expertise in a lot of things. And along with that, you have been so humble and you have taken your successes and your shortcomings both in the same stride, right? So one thing I realized that in this conversation, what we are mainly going to learn is to how to treat life in general and how to basically proceed forward through every difficulties that we face. So that's majorly going to be the context of conversation today, right? So anyway, welcome, Mr. Jagdish Uncle.
Thank you, Sankeet.
No problem. I hope you're doing well. How is the COVID situation treating you right now?
We are taking care, every care.
Yeah.
At the same time, we are not missing out on doing things which are important and need to be done. So I think that's the way our lives will have to be led from now onwards.
100%. Yes. Has things changed a lot though? I think
yes. Yes. I think change in terms of social interaction, it has physical social interaction. It has changed. But at the same time, certain challenges also give rise to opportunities. It has also changed for the better, personally, for all of us in many ways, as has been downsides to our lives. Yeah.
There will always be downsides to small things.
Right? Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. But still, like through your journey as well, through your corporate career, through your general career, through life as well, I'm sure there were a lot of previous issues also that came along with COVID is one of them that has recently popped up where even we are involved in it. So have there been similar incidences in the past also that has probably, put a shortfall onto your life as well in a similar manner?
Yeah. See, first of all, I would like to thank you and Priyanjali for saying so many kind words about me. And also thank you for giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you.
100%.
I really appreciate that. But now coming back to the question that you asked, has there been any crisis of this nature in the past? Obviously, we all know that this pandemic has been one that has affected lives more than any crisis, in recent memory. So obviously, this stands out as one of the worst. But to answer your question at a very I would say, a philosophical level. Once His Holiness Dalai Lama was asked, what did he do when the worst crisis happened in his life? And we all know that the worst crisis was when he was actually moving from Tibet to India. India. So he said something very interesting. He said, think with the mind, So I think it's very important to understand, to take a lesson from this, that when we go through the crisis, and I have gone through, you asked me about the crisis I have gone in my career, there have been some, but nothing to this level. When you go through any crisis or challenge, apply your mind as much as possible. Any crisis, it's like a fall, like a physical fall. So when you fall, what happens is, or when you face that kind of a mental fall, what happens is the right thing for anyone to do is, or the normal reaction of anyone is to recover, and then rebuild as much as you can, and then try to repurpose, if there have been some mistakes, they try to repurpose and then rethink and repurpose and go on with your life. So I suppose that's how it should be dealt with, is what I think.
Exactly. Every crisis has got a solution at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
100%. So anyway, Jagdish Uncle, allow me to deep dive into your past a little bit now. Sure. Now, the fact is that you have been giving us a lot of knowledge. Like the version of you that we see right now is a very well knowledgeable, very well-versed version of yourself. I just want to know, even at a younger age, were you a similar person, or were you more of a mischievous kind of a person who, was taking life lightly, or what was it like?
I really, I don't think I was mischievous, but what had happened was, you grow into a family which is brings certain influences and values. Yeah. So our family had a lot of importance given for education, music, and at that time, I remember my father was kind of a freedom fighter, in the sense he wore khadi all his life and believed in the spirit of one nation, the new nation. And so that culture was one of, wanting to succeed for a higher, goal. So that kind of influence was there on me. And as a young boy, I used to participate in Toastmasters Club, participate in, high school YMCA activities, like what Priyanjali said about you, involved myself in debate and etc. And was scholastic, in the sense was educationally sort of, in terms of education and results, was amongst the first 5 in the class every time. That was the school days, yes. But one evolves over a period of time, Sanket. It is not that you are already like that. You evolve over a period of time, and then certain good influences happen in your life. Parents, brothers and sisters, your close family, your close friends, your teachers. Most important are the teachers who influence you. I remember 2 or 3 teachers who had a marked influence in the way I thought, in the way my thinking changed. So yes, it was like that.
Awesome. So basically, in your childhood, you were a smart person. You were one of those first benchers who basically like coming on the top of the class as well.
Yes, I was, but I wouldn't say smart, but I was okay study-wise. Yeah, good. True, yeah. I think I was good. Yes.
But did you even through college, even after you passed out of college, did you ever look at yourself turn into the person you are today with so many accolades, so much of knowledge that's already there?
Right. I wanted to share this with you, with all, No, Sangeet, it was not like that. And I want to share this with you because there may be many young friends who might have gone or who might be going through what I did go through then. Yeah. You see, the foundation of a career, or a building of a career, or a building of life, is not only based on solid foundation or solid abilities, but it is also built on lessons learned from moments of lapses, failures, setbacks. 100%. And these lessons are very important. So I appeared for IIT exam, failed, not once, twice, okay? And this made me think at that time. I said, and a student who was very good at that time, we had 11th standard as the SSC, and then the first year I got first class. Intermediate was not so great. I got distracted. And that was a little moment of downfall. And then I had to think. I said, look, would I want to build a career where I will be a clerk in the Sachivalaya? At that time, Sachivalaya was the Mantralaya, a government clerk, Babu, and do the Babugiri all my life, or do I want to become someone? And that's when and this IIT preparation also, my father had spent a lot of money on me. So I felt quite guilty that, I had not lived up to that kind of promise. So I applied myself and then was able to get entrance to IIM. At that time, I got entrance into IIM and Indian Statistical Institute both. So that was an important change, which happened. And that happened because I soon realized that I had made some mistakes and I needed to correct it. And thereafter, the career actually evolved, and it's also, we are very fortunate, Sankeet, there, and I must consider myself one of the luckier ones, who was able to get funding from my father, brother for my education. And I must consider myself lucky also that I was able to get into a good company. I joined Asian Paints in 1979 and retired in 2014. So that also is certain providential, help also happens, and that makes one's life and career. That does not mean you don't need to prepare. One did prepare, one applied one's mind into doing what one wanted to do, and then had some purpose. And that's when I began to realize that if you want to do something, you have to have a purpose in life. There has to be an engine which drives you.
100%, Jagdish uncle. And since we were in line of purpose itself, you mentioned that you joined Asian Paint in 1979 and you retired straight away in 2014. Like, you dived into the paint industry completely, and you have become a pioneer in the paint industry as well, right?
Yes.
So I just want to know, a majority of the issue that youngsters are facing these days is sticking to a career where they're constantly questioning themselves, have I chosen the right path for myself? So in the beginning of the career, did you believe in the fact that paint industry is something that you genuinely want to do? Or did you also have those doubts and moments where you were questioning your decisions as well?
Yeah. No. See, I never had time to question my decision once I joined Asian Paint. There was never some time, probably there was a time when I wanted to leave, that too after 30 years, something happened which made me think, should I continue or not? Otherwise, right from the day one till about almost 34 years, 37 years, I never thought even once about regretting a decision of joining Asian Paints, or I never once regretted the decision of joining Asian Paints, or never even once thought of leaving it, So the question is, why did that happen? That happened because, again, it's always a two, it takes two to tango, as they say. It was also the company culture, It appreciated good work. It gave, people the liberty to do what they want. It took the best people. It got the best out of them by delegating, by making them. I was a branch manager within 3 years of my joining the company. But then, you must ensure that you justify that role, and so on and so forth. So I never regretted that decision. And I think those days, Sankeet, people stayed in one job for long years.
Yeah.
In fact, you will not believe, in IIM, mine was the 14th batch. There were 6 of us who were taken by Asian Paints from the batch. At those days, Asian Paints used to hire MBAs by the dozens. They used to go hire 10 people from IMA, 6 from Calcutta, 6 from Bangalore, and so on. So I was one of the 6, and you'll be surprised to hear this. Out of the 6, 3 of us completed our full term in Asian Paints. We retired. We retired in Asian Paints. So, and one of them went on to become an MD also of Asian Paints. So what I'm trying to say, those days, there was some kind of commitment to working in one company. It was a culture. It was nothing surprising. But it changed. Even as we were completing our term, it changed. It changed to people, especially it started with the IT industry and the finance industry, people changing jobs to get better opportunities. There was nothing wrong in it. What happens in the future, I'll come to it in a minute.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I didn't regret that decision, because when you join a company, the most important thing that you can do is bring value to your job. Make yourself valuable. And that can only happen if you stay there for long and be a participant in the building of the company. I have seen the company grow from, can you believe, 100 crore to a 10,000 crore company? More than 10,000 now. Yeah. And the fact that I was a participant in that process of building, that means my brick also counted in that building, gives me this tremendous joy. And I think so that is why, you are able to, and also when you get an opportunity to stay in a company for a long period, you get an opportunity to transform yourself from being a manager to a leader, from managing complexities to managing inspiration of people, influencing people, so you get that opportunity. Sorry, I went about it in a roundabout way, but I wanted to share with you that there was nothing wrong in changing jobs, but you can only create value if you're there for a long period of time.
Long time, exactly.
Long term, you realize, I can modestly say, or rather it may sound immodest, that I was able to build 3 factories, and I've seen it from purchase of the ground to it successfully returning shareholders their investment back, so that gives you tremendous satisfaction. That's a full cycle you take through.
Yeah.
Sangeet, if you don't mind, I just want to add something, but the landscape has changed now. Now it is not whether you want to stay in a job or whether you have a choice of moving jobs. I think that has changed now. Now, what will happen is, in about 5 to 7 years' time, experts believe that you have to develop skills and capabilities which will be availed of at different points of time by different companies. That means you become like a consultant, or you become like a service provider with some skills. So it is not whether you want to stay at a job or you want to move into a job. Company will decide whether they want to take your services or not.
Exactly. Yeah. So people have become more like a consultant these days.
I wouldn't use the word consultant. What people have to become is, they have to develop skills which are specialized, which are required by the company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Great. One statement that you said, Jagdish Uncle, it's actually stuck in my head because that's one of my favorite statements. You said that you saw yourself transform into become from a manager to a leader, right?
Yes.
If you don't mind, could you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah.
Because I'm a little biased towards that statement. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll share with you. I'll just give you a few thoughts here.
Yeah.
In each one of us, there is an element of manager and an element of leader. Okay?
Yeah.
There are portions of. Now it can vary. I'll tell you what I mean by it. See, managers manage complexities. They do. They manage the relationship between people. They manage problems, interdepartmental problems. They manage projects. So they are managing complexities. Whereas what happens with leaders is, or when the manager wants to become a leader or evolves into a leader, what he really does is, he really influences change. He manages change.
Yes.
He inspires people to be creative. He inspires people to he inspires people to become better managers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
He or she inspires people to become better managers. So there is a difference between, so what happened in my career, it is like, I was at this level of sight. I wouldn't say level in hierarchy. I never considered myself a boss or thing. It's a level of sight.
Yeah.
My sight was more on the ground. Then the sight, like a helicopter moved up. Then you had a holistic view of a bigger portfolio.
Area, yeah.
And then your challenges became different. You had to manage change rather than manage complexities. because the goals, you had a personal commitment to the goals. I think the difference between a leader and a manager is the leader actually has a personal bond with the goal. He has got a bond with that. His attitude is one of finding how this goal can be achieved, what are the rewards, how I can do my, get my organizational move forward.
True. Makes sense. That's brilliant. Like, I know I'm digressing a little bit away from topic, but I know that, as you mentioned, you have a lot of learning right now. Everything that you have learned till now, right, is through your experiences. But were there some mentors also you taught you through this process, and how essential it is to have mentors in life in general?
Yeah, actually, this mentors are very important.
Yeah.
And the mentoring can happen in many ways. Mentoring can happen through a physical person,
Of course, yeah.
Mentoring can, and that's mostly effective. That's mostly effective. Because, and the mentor is not just a person whom you go to and ask for solutions. No, mentor by his behavior, through his behavior, and by his ability to approach problems, gives you some hints on how to do it yourself. Just being in his shadow, you realize that this is how you should be discriminating, this is how you should be discerning, this is how you should be decisive, and so on and so forth. So there is mentoring through physical interaction. Mentoring can also happen through reading of biographical sketches of people. Mentoring can also happen by listening to gurus or scholars who speak very well. So there are many ways of mentoring, but mentoring is important. As you know, many saints have also said, and Sant Kabir is known to have said this many times, that without a guru there is nothing. You can't attain anything without a guru. So mentoring is important.
100%. That's always going to be essential. And the best thing is that mentor is good, but at the end of the day, you also need to have a learner's mindset, right?
Absolutely. Exactly. You should be what they call, what is competence all about? Competence is nothing but ability to unlearn and learn like a sponge, That is how you develop competencies.
True. That's amazing. Great. Now, one more thing that excited me a lot about your portfolio, Uncle, is that you have traveled a lot. You have worked in a lot of different countries as well. You worked in China, you worked in Australia, in Southern Asia, and Eastern Asia, if I'm not wrong. A lot of different places, right? So I'm sure along with the cultural difference, there was a work culture that was different. There was a general lifestyle culture that was different amongst everybody from India to every other place as well. So if you don't mind me asking, which culture affected you the most, or which culture like added most value onto you as well, or something that still stays with you?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting you asked me this question.
Yeah.
And I'll try to answer as briefly as I can, because it's a very
I know it's a very
question,
wide
but I'll
question.
try to answer wide question. So let me see, I traveled, let me generally categorize the places I traveled or I stayed. One was South Pacific,
South Pacific, yeah.
And one was Australia. I'm trying to differentiate the two because the work-life culture, if I may add, was different in this. And then there was the Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore,
Philippines,
all that. And then there was the East Asia, China. And China is separate, in that sense. So in these countries, if you were to ask me what impacted me the most, it's very difficult to answer because each one impacted me in a different way. And I'll tell you how. In South Pacific, this, if I were to say work life like this, if I were to show you, in South Pacific, the life factor, life balance, the life balance, in work-life balance, the life balance went up a little bit.
Yeah.
And the work was not great because it's a different country at a different level of development.
Yeah.
The efficiencies are different, the values are different, the work ethic, concept of work ethic is different.
Yeah.
But this is where, if you have a better sense of work ethic, you can actually add value without affecting the life balance. Then you come to Australia. Now, Australia is it's a country with contrast. For example, in Australia, there are people whose work-life balance, the life balance is so high, the work is low, work component. At the same time, in the same Australia, there were people whom I know who had a fantastic work-life balance. In the sense, when they work from 7 to 7 or 6 in the evening, they gave their very best to the work that they did. So the general view about Australia, you have laid back people was not right at all, because it was a myth. I know of people with whom I have worked, Australians, who actually had a great sense of work ethic, professional sense of work ethic. So, and then you come to Hong Kong and Singapore and all, where as you go towards Korea, the life factor comes down, the work becomes predominant. I suppose in India, it's both as good. It depends on how you define it for yourself and how you ensure that the boundaries are maintained in a proper way between work and life balance.
100%.
Between work-life balance, you know what I mean.
For sure. In India,
but to answer your question, which impacted me the most, it was certainly China, because I realized that in China, they had a tremendous sense of, they had a work ethic which contributed to productivity, very good productivity. Whether it was the best, I was impacted in that sense. Whether it was good or bad, I don't want to make a value judgment, but you know what I mean? It is impacted because it was tremendously a good lesson to understand how productive you can be.
Yeah, productivity is highest over there.
Very good.
True. I've heard about the efficiency stories in China, how efficient they are with their work as well. Right. That's the reason why they handle majority of the manufacturing of the world, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that is because, once they are told a certain set of things, they continue to do it just like that.
Exactly. That's the best part about them. Great. Now, Jagdish uncle, just now, if you see the situation also is such that, the outside market has become a little rough, where people are not hiring as much, and people who have been hired previously have been laid off quite a lot, right? So if you probably had an advice to give a fresher today, or probably a person who has just started working in the outside world, what advice would you probably give them right now at this point?
Yeah, Shankit, I just wanted to ask me this a little more pointedly.
Okay.
You're saying about when a person has got work, or when just come again with your question. Yeah.
A person who is a fresher, a person who has recently graduated, right? What has happened is that in the outside world right now, people have not been hiring as much as they used to before. Because companies are also in a survival mode right now, right? So what advice would you probably give a fresher right now at this point with respect to how can he go about his career?
Yeah. See, one of the advice I give my students also, I teach in an institute, when they ask me the same question, I said, look, don't be choosy about what you get, in the sense, no, I only want this profession. I don't want to take this. Don't be choosy about it. The situation today is such that don't be too selective.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it's not the kind of work that you do, actual domain expertise that you develop, that is more as important as the platform expertise you develop. That means it is the generic qualities in you, or what they call generic competencies in with you, where you'll be judged. I'll again give it as an example.
Yes.
If you say, no, I want to become a financial analyst, and there are no jobs there. Of course, financial analysis, there are jobs now, but assume that you want to become a financial analyst and you don't say no to other jobs. And if the financial analysis is not there, you'll be frustrated, okay? Don't waste your time thinking about that, fact that you were deprived of a good job. Try to get any other job where your generic competencies like leadership, communication, team building, okay, and customer centricity will all be tested. So irrespective of the industry, if you develop these qualities, you'll be ready. When the market is ready, you'll be ready for a switch.
100%.
I think people should not be choosy. They should go with what they get. You should be unless you want to start up on your own, which is also a great thing.
Yeah.
But you should get involved in activities sooner or later.
True.
Don't postpone action.
Yes. I think we should write that down. Don't postpone action. That's a great quote. So anyway, Jagdish.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
So anyway, Jagdish Uncle, I'll take this opportunity to pass the mic on to Priyanjali. She has prepared something good for you. That's a great video. Priyanjali, you can take it forward from here, okay?
So nice of her.
Yeah.
We have a small video to show. It's just a small compilation. So I'll just share the screen.
It's amazing.
Thank you, Priyanjali. That is really nice. Thank you.
Jagdish Uncle, I just saw you tapping your hand like you were playing the tabla yourself. Was this one of your own compositions?
This is a very famous and a beautiful composition by Sarod. It was a wonderful piece which Priyanjali has took. No, I didn't have anything to do with it.
No, but
But instinctively, I started tapping because it's such a nice rhythm.
I know. I saw you enjoying the tap. It felt like you were playing it yourself. Great. Jagdish Uncle, I heard a lot about your stories, about how you basically have turned yourself into a social worker as well, and how you're a philanthropist right now. If you don't mind, could you just tell a little bit about the things that you're doing currently, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I want to share that with all because thanks, Sankit, for asking me this question. See, I was a corporate guy, all along, 37 years, then I retired. And then Asian Paints asked me to advise them on corporate social responsibility, CSR, which I had actually drafted their policy when I was the CEO of PPG Asian Paints. Then they said, after I retired, he said, why don't you join us and advise as an advisor? And that is where my life, in some ways changed because when I got involved with the social work for Asian Paints, I visited as many as 15, 16 villages, in India and in various parts of the country. And I also got understood what are the social issues in India. Let me 3 or 4 things, and then I just want to sensitize our young friends with that. See, India is a poorest. 1/3 of India is poor, really poor. And in the world, 1/3 of the poor live in India. You got my point?
I got it. Yeah.
Out of, out of 3 children, 2 are malnourished. We have issues with education, class 10 standard children. I'm talking about rural education here. They don't even know the numeracy and literacy which is required of a 5th year student, 5th class. 70% of them don't know, not 100, 70%. And this is worst in the northern regions of India. So we have a lot of issues of malnourishment. We have a lot of issues of the skill level. The formal people, there are 90% of workforce in India work in the informal sector.
Yeah.
And only 5% are properly skilled. That means with a certificate. Whereas the country, you go to Korea is of course very high, but generally it is about 60% of people are formally skilled.
Yeah.
So we have a host of problems. So when I started going to this, looking at the social issues, I realized that the India that I knew was completely different from the India that was there, out there. And that is when I realized that there needs to be something that I as an individual should be doing. So I got involved with philanthropic organizations through, a nephew of mine connected me with social venture part philanthropists. And then I got involved with them. I am working with 4 NGOs now on a regular basis. One of them look after women, emancipation. One looks after skilling. Okay. For all the, Naxal area, that area students, they all underprivileged. They skill them and then give them jobs. Then there is a third one again into their motto is dropouts to livelihoods. That means they are looking at school dropouts and training them. Okay. And then there is one more, which is helping the poor and the needy during the COVID crisis. Also, Sangeet, what has happened is I told you 1/3 people are poor. And similarly, this poverty has increased now during this COVID period.
It has increased.
And there is also a lot of lower middle class people who are going into poverty.
Yeah.
It is, when you look at these issues, you realize the kind of extent of the problem. Even Palghar, which is 2 hours away from here, you will find that the infrastructure is not good. In fact, I don't mind taking a group of Gokul youth wingers to some of these places, so that you can see for yourself what is the situation. You can also see the good work that is being done by NGOs, but I'm just saying what are the problems we have in the villages.
Yes.
So that's what made me interested in the social space. And the more you get involved in this, the more you realize there is so much more to do,
Yes.
And then you hear stories of people who have succeeded despite odds. We are the haves. So we do not have what the have-nots have, The have-nots have the guts, the determination to succeed, the hunger for, doing something in life. Sometimes it's missing with the haves. We have the haves, but the have-nots have what we don't have.
Yes.
So I realized that. So that's what makes this entire commitment very interesting. And it also comes with some financial commitment. You have to pay something. But more than commitment, I also get involved. Yesterday and the day before, 2 days, I was involved with a NGO, just helping them out, restructure what we call in the social space as theory of change. What is their theory of change? With a proper analytical approach. Yeah. So it's very interesting. And I would like more and more people to understand this because, we are very fortunate, especially in the COVID times. Every day you get up, you must thank God that you are in the situation that you are in, and look and think of people who have to worry about the next meal,
True. Yeah. Funnily, Jagdish uncle, even I started my career in the social space itself, where I also was working towards a girl child education, right?
Excellent. And where was that?
We are working with this organization called Plan India.
Yeah. I remember you had raised some fundraising. Yes.
One major issue, in the social space that we have, is that people in general, they start questioning the organization, and secondly, they start questioning the government most often.
Yeah.
And one major issue, especially with the educated strata, is that they want everything done by the government and they don't want to pay any attention to it. So do you have any advice for people like this who basically expect everything to be done by the government?
See, you actually hit the nail on the head,
Yeah.
Everybody thinks, it is somebody else's problem, especially it's the government's problem.
Yeah.
Actually, the number of schemes, and Sankit, you know about it since you were involved with Planet, the number of
Yes.
schemes government has in place, they are very, very, there could be some leakages, they may not be reaching, but things are improving,
Yeah,
especially for nutrition, especially for girl child education, especially for, some things have got upset during the COVID time, Anganwadi and all have got a little upset. And, the midday meal has gone off and all that. But the government schemes are very much in place. My advice to people is, why don't you engage yourself with an NGO first?
Yeah.
Okay? Good NGO. Engage means deeply engage. Go and meet and spend time. And then you make whatever comments you want to make about the situation. No issues. But without first-hand knowledge and information, don't come to conclusion based on hearsay or gossip or WhatsApp messages. Nobody says government is perfect, but the government schemes that are in place, and government alone cannot do anything. In fact, our problems are so humongous that even if we were to spend 50, 60,000 crores, which corporates are required to spend by way of 2% of CSR.
Yes.
That is a trickle in the need, it is just a trickle in the requirement that the government has to outlay. So unless corporates and individuals like you and me and high net worth individuals come and contribute towards, don't do anything more, just concentrate on the sustainable, SDGs. Sustainable development goals. Just concentrate on the world, what India has committed towards sustainable development goals, like the girl child education or infant mortality or livelihood skills, etc. Just let's concentrate on those 5, women emancipation. And you will realize that you would have contributed to the country's, progress.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that, Jagdish uncle, mainly because I remember once when I had gone to the center in Kamatipura, that's in Mumbai itself. Over there, when I see these girls getting educated, the girls going to school every day with so much excitement, it just feels like, you have completed a task.
Absolutely.
And it feels like you have contributed so much back. It just adds a lot of value onto you.
See, now that you raised this, just one more thing, you might have heard about it or you must have noticed. I think in one of the corporate organizations, what they have done is, public sector banks, what they have done is the children of prostitutes, they have selected a few of them and they are training them in 5-star hotels to become in the hospitality industry. Imagine what will happen to these children when they become adults. They would have changed the course of a generation,
Yeah.
And so many things are happening. I am very happy about to hear what you're doing. Like to hear more about it offline and when we discuss.
100%, sir. So one thing, like this is the most, I think this question has been asked to you multiple times. You have worked in the corporate sector also, and you have worked in the government sector also, right? So if you don't mind, could you probably give me a diversification of how exactly does a corporate sector function and how different is working with the government?
Yeah. See, there are 2 golden rules I follow in whatever I do, or me and my wife Meera do. We follow that. When we were going from one place to another, we used to never compare the old place with the new one.
Yeah.
Or compare the new place with the old one. Never.
Okay.
We went from very nice country to a country which was lower in development index, but we never compared. Okay.
Yeah.
We went from a small country to a very developed country. We never compared it again. Many people come from elsewhere to India and say, India is no good, Australia, US was better. Don't compare it. And second, wherever you are, try to give your best to that place.
Yeah.
Similarly, it is about corporate and government. Many people who leave corporate and go to the government or understand government try to say, corporate was so different. It is so much better, so on. And don't compare. Understand the context in which the government is working. Try to understand the people. Government is made up of people like you and me. It is not a different animal, And there are people like you and me who are successful people like you and me who are there in the government. And they also have a same passion and commitment which you and I have in the corporate sector. Okay. So I have met people, Sankir, in the government who are change makers, who have so much of commitment to, loyalty to the country and commitment to their job. So I have met some fantastic people. So working in the government is different. You have to understand the context, and then you will realize how to make the best of it, And I find a lot of good work happening in the government in the area of digitization, in the area of skilling, so on and so forth.
It's really nice. It's really nice to know.
And it is important, Sankit, that I got this experience because I had the experience of working in a corporate, India's topmost corporate company, and also US topmost corporate, because I was in a joint venture. I understood how the US company also worked. But this working with the government has been a fantastic experience.
I can imagine. I'm glad, Jagdish Uncle. One thing I learned from this entire thing that you just told me is that you don't complain about anything. No. Like whatever sector you're in, you can't complain about it. Yeah.
Don't complain. Try to find out how you can contribute rather than finding out how it is wasting, why it is you're wasting. Yeah. Find out how you can use, and then the entire context changes, because in the government also, there is so much of work to do. Government has its own characteristic about the way it work procedures and all. I told you that, it could be, but there's a lot of value because the government is the only entity which can provide scale to solutions.
Yeah. True. I think majority of our idea from the government comes from the Bollywood movies itself, where we just see that the government sector is one place that people are just bribing and people only care about money. And that's where our entire image comes from. So that's what I think it's maligned in the first
place. Partly it may be true, but it cannot be generalized, no?
Yeah, it cannot be generalized. True. I'm glad that you cleared that out for a lot of people. Along with that, Jagdish Uncle, I also know that you're working with Paints and Coating Skill Council.
Yeah.
Right, where I think you basically work on a curriculum of different students, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't mind me asking, how is it working over there? Do you every year focus on changing the curriculum for people?
No.
Or what's it like?
So how it happens and what happens is, this is again a very great initiative by the government. And I'm not saying this government has done it. It was done prior to, so it's not nothing to do with which government.
Yeah.
The government initiated the skilling program, which got more emphasis during this present government. Is that what we do is it's a kind of a working cooperation between the government and the industry. Okay.
Yeah.
So the skill councils, 37 of them were set up, sector skill councils. They are in hospitality, tourism, hospitality, automotive, retail, logistics, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
We are in paints and coating. And what we do is we look at the skill gap required in the industry sector.
Yeah.
What are the skill gaps? Where there is a gap, where curriculum is not available. So you look at that gap, skill gap, and try to build a curriculum based on national occupation standards. And that curriculum, you then ask people if they want to get that skill, you get them trained, right? And then once they train, you assess them and give them a certificate. So what happens is you are actually providing a vocational skill to people by providing an industry relevant curriculum.
Exactly.
So they are easily employable.
Yes.
And you know what? That is the figure I was looking at. We have developed 2,900 job roles. And they are all available on the site. Okay. And these are about 7,000 national occupation standards, extremely well designed. Yeah. So if you want to become let's say a welder,
yeah,
at level 4 job, then it's available. Curriculum is available. And training manuals are available. Facilitator guides are available. Participant handbook is available. All this has been made available. Now, this is for the vocational time. For people, you were saying that engineering courses, etc. Sankit, this Swayam is a great site. Swayam,
okay.
Which is again a government site which gives you training in many new areas. It's like online teaching you can apply for it and get certificates.
Yeah, it's amazing. Great. So one thing I'll just digress a little bit away again, like how you mentioned previously as well, that there's a difference between a leader and a manager, right? So just taking that from the back previous conversation that we had, what I've seen is that these days people are complaining a lot about the education system in general, right? Do you think it's more because of the curriculum that they are basically provide, or do you think it's more because of the leadership that's there in schools and colleges these days?
Yeah, actually, you asked me again a very interesting dimension you put there. I think it's a mix of both.
Okay.
Because I'm also on the board of studies of well-known education institute in South, and on the governing council of another education institute, and I am aware of the issues relating to curriculum.
Yeah.
The curriculum, Sanket, is outdated.
Yeah.
And it is outdated, you know why? Not because the curriculum developers are not good, they are very, very, very good, but because they don't have an industry experience,
Yeah.
and that industry component is very important. So that is happening now with the national education policy, the new NEP coming in. You will see significant changes happening in the way curriculums are developed, in the way they are administered, in the way they are delivered. So to sum up this question, because it's very interesting, here is where leadership will have to come into play. This is a change that will happen. If there are no good leaders who will manage this change, then we are stuck.
Yeah.
But if there are leaders who accept, here again, the industry has to come forward a little bit to help the academia. Academia cannot do this alone. It has to be together. And so wherever academia asks industry help, industry should provide. And wherever industry asks academia's help for remodeling the curriculum, they should provide. So it's very important. And leadership can bring this marriage properly.
True, 100%. It was also said by this person named Jordan Peterson. He said this once in one of his interviews, that teaching is not a profession, it's more of a passion. But but one major issue is that these days people are treating it more of a profession. And that's one of the reasons I think the students are also coming out in a way where they are just looking out for professions and they're not looking out for passions in general. And I think that's also one issue that we are facing, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it's an issue of, I wouldn't generalize it. There are good students also with a lot of good attitude. But what is happening is, we have become checklist stickers, have I attended this class? Yes. Have I submitted this project? Yes. In fact, there is intellectual dishonesty. I know of some people doing projects. They are outsourcing projects, they are supposed to do it themselves. And they outsource some. There is a expert who can give them a crash course and also provide a project at a fee. I mean, this is what happens, when you are intellectually dishonest about what you are doing. And I think that is something that a good student shouldn't be doing, is what I feel. You, after all, even whatever you learn, the foundations, the fundamentals are very important. Because what I notice, Sanket, is when I interview students, sometimes I find that the foundation is not strong.
True.
You ask a basic fundamental question to a commerce graduate, whether equity is a liability or a assets, and he answers it that he or she answers it as an asset, there is fundamentally something wrong in their understanding.
Exactly. Yes. I understood. I know where you are also coming from. But the fundamentals is something that needs to be strong. We need to train from the basics, right?
Yes.
Great. So now just lightening the mood up a little bit, Jagdish Uncle. I know that you have a lot of hobbies also apart from education, where I know you're a very avid reader and you're also very much into music as well, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. I must say I'm not an avid reader. My family will laugh when if they hear that I'm an avid reader. No, actually, I'm not an avid reader. But I like to build a library, not only for reading but for reference too. It's like having a garden of different flowers. So yes, I'm an avid collector of good books, if I can say that. Avid reader, yes, I reference a lot of books. See, for example, you want to know how to, there used to be a shorthand, how to learn shorthand, how to write, take notes in shorthand,
Yes.
or what is hypnotism, how do you use gestures, who is Mullah Nasruddin, or is there a devil's dictionary? Yes, there is one. And like that, there's an eclectical books I have, which is very interesting. And the references are also very interesting. But the important thing is, and also there are so many good books in Kannada, in Hindi, in Urdu. So if you have translations of this, you should try and get it. And these are the translation books I have. There is this Monk Timmanna Kaga, that translation of that book, which is in Kannada. So many interesting books are there, and so I have a collection of those. So I'm not an avid reader, but yes, it's a nice garden of many flowers, and you can come and pick the flower you want. As far as music is concerned, it is something that is there in the family, and there are better musicians than me in the family, and I'm really happy to be a part of a family which is a family of musicians.
100%, yes. But how did that interest develop in general? Like, I'm sure you had an option of selecting a lot of instruments, but you chose percussion the best.
Yeah.
So how did you end up?
Yeah. So Sangeet, I sometimes believe, in the fact that there is something within an individual, it motivates him or her to take up an instrument. It's very difficult to say that what it is.
Yeah.
See, I don't know why, but I had a love for rhythm right from the beginning. There's a gift for rhythm. Maybe because I was listening to a lot of music in the house and there were musicians around. So rhythm always interested me. And I must say this, see, I didn't practice as much as I should, but when I was young, I was playing very well. And it has stood me in good stead, even when I was abroad, and I'll come to that point later. I really feel one with the instrument, when I play, and it's a natural thing for me to play that instrument. Of course, I could have honed my skills better there. Now, in the family, there's my brother, there's my niece and all who have a gift for some instruments. So it's very difficult to say whether I particularly chose it, but it came to me and I really embraced it. But one thing I do want to say this, when I was abroad, this music stood me in good stead. We always had a music circle and we used to perform and all that, and that gave joy beyond any measure. It was fantastic. So I think having some hobbies like this always helps.
100%. Also, just because nowadays people have become so bad at time management, if I may say very bluntly, how did you end up finding time for hobbies like these as well?
Yeah. See, you said correctly that time management is important. Yeah. What happens is you realize today that you spend a lot of time. For example, I myself am guilty of spending a lot of time on the mobile.
Yeah.
Now, there were times when we didn't have all this, and we could pay social visits to our family, seniors, elders. We could set out, I remember going every evening 2 kilometers away from my house, playing tabla for, my sisters who would sing in their class and coming back. And we had time for all that. So I think we should delete some things which we are doing today to find some time for something more important which we need to do.
Exactly. That's always going to be the case. But irrespective, just one curious question. How did you end up choosing percussion as an instrument though?
Yeah. As I said, there was some natural affinity towards that. And then in the family, there were singers, very good musicians, singers. And then my brother, who is probably not formally trained, has a knack to play a lot more instruments. He can play many instruments. So it is a kind of a gift. And I took to percussion because I loved it. And I then started developing a sort of a skill, which I thought made me, once you taste a little bit of success, you enjoy.
Yeah. The results always motivate you to push.
Motivate you to do well. And then there comes a time when you actually are one with the instrument. And that when it happens, there is no greater joy than that.
100%, 100%. So Jagdish Uncle, if you don't mind, if you could just nowadays youngsters, they are trying to digress away from developing hobbies in general. So you could probably like give a suggestion on importance of hobbies. Like why is it important to have some hobbies apart from work as well?
Yeah.
Just to keep yourself engaged. Yes.
Okay. I'll answer it in a very direct way.
Yeah.
Having a hobby means increasing your chance of corporate career success. And
Okay.
I'll explain to you why. If I can put it that way, people will listen to me.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you why. One of the discussions we had was, why are people not creative? You know, and what we realized was that their talents were limited. And imagine, India and China were to be the most innovative countries at one time in the history of the world. Okay. Why? Because each of the student in China then or in India then were given exposure to multiple areas of interest.
Yeah.
Music was there was this drama, there was a lot of things were taught during the first 16 years. And in Gurukul and all these things were taught, that many vidyas were taught. And so they came out as people with not a very narrow perspective, but a very broad perspective. And that creative talent makes a person a whole, So they realized, when we were discussing with academia at one time, we realized that we don't produce innovative people because they are not creative. Yeah. And they are not creative because they are not multi-talented. So having a hobby is very important. Having a hobby not only is important to develop your other skills, the softer skills, but also is important to de-stress. Coming hard, you come back from work and you take a guitar or you play a tabla, you really enjoy. You are in a different world. And so therefore, and also for development of the brain also, if children who use both hands, piano, for example, tabla, or any, most instrument use both hands.
Yes.
And they are very good for development of the physical aspects of the brain too.
Cognitive abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Both cognitive and the other, it improves. So it's actually, if you ask me, hobby is a important personality development too.
Yeah.
Having a hobby, having a good hobby. Yeah.
Having a good hobby. I like you mentioned.
Any good hobby. Yeah. Even stamp collection, or even collecting, even stamp collections, and they call it numismatics, those coin collections. These are all important because you learn a lot of things in that particular discipline.
It's going to be that, true. Now, I know, Jagdish uncle, you're not an avid reader, but still, I personally, even I'm not an avid reader, but I enjoy the idea of reading books a lot. Because I know books have a lot of knowledge, but it's a little tough to read books in general. But irrespective, for our listeners, also for me as well, especially for me, you would probably give a couple of book suggestions, which we could also go back to.
Yeah. See, I will limit myself to suggesting books, type of books, not just one book.
Okay.
For character building, because I think probably that is important, and that's what I think you might have had in mind.
Yeah.
See, what I noticed is, and I'm doing some work with my elder sister, and I find that quite motivating. If you can take time to read Gita well, Bhagavad Gita well, that's a fantastic book, People might say, oh, it's for, when you get old and all. No, actually, Bhagavad Gita was told to a supreme commander of the army.
Was a youngster, yes.
Yeah, it was narrated, or the Gita was narrated to, or Gita was expressed to a man of action.
Yes.
And so it is very nice, and it tells you about not just character, but it tells you about a lot of things. Then, Sankit, I also wanted to share this with you. It's not just books. You listen to tapes of, I find it interesting, and I would recommend you, tapes of Osho,
Osho.
Yeah, Osho. Again, it's very deep and very interesting. Or you can even listen to Kabir bhajans, My Knees, very interested, or Santa Gnaneshwari. These are all very interesting books which have a lot to tell. They may have a spiritual dimension, but they are very interesting anyway.
Yeah.
But then coming to modern day things, there are many books which have come in the economic, discipline realm, which I think the one or two the newer books which are talking about the nudge economics, etc. These are very interesting books to read.
Yeah.
I also listen to a lot of audio tapes.
Audiobooks kind of things. Yes. One thing I realized, even when I read books, right, a generation of books, be it a pre-independence book or be it a book from the French Revolution, it feels like, you're time traveling to that generation.
Absolutely.
Like, as you mentioned, you also listen to a lot of Urdu poetry, a lot of Urdu books as well. It feels like a time traveling back to the pre-independence era. So
absolutely,
it actually takes you to a different dimension, as you correctly.
And some books are so well written that they bring alive that period, and so that these are actually, once now that you say that, I also feel I was motivated first. The first biography I read was of Franklin Roosevelt. It was a fantastic biography. Of course, then I have since then read Mahatma Gandhi's biography and all that, but autobiography also. But what I'm saying is biographies sketches are very important for reading as a book reading. And I would also like to mention here one more set of books, Sanket. If people can buy it, it is Murthy's Classical Library, where what they have done is they have given the original text on the left-hand side, okay?
Yeah.
And right-hand side, the meaning. So for all our generation who do not know deeply the vernacular, this is a very good, bouquet of vernacular as well as English translation.
True.
Books.
Murthy's Classics, right?
Murthy Classical Library. Murthy's, Mr. Narayan Murthy's son, Rohan Murthy, gave a big amount of to Harvard's classical library books. So this is a set of books which have come, which are really, really good. There is one on Akbar, there is one on Ram, there are so many of them. Yeah. True. And they are very good books. I would recommend those who are interested to start reading these books, because on one side you have the the original text, on the right hand side is the translation.
The meaning as well. That's nice. Yeah. For sure. If for sure we'll have to get into such habits as well. Reading is something I'm also trying to develop since quite some time, because I know to develop yourself, reading is important. Right?
Yes.
True. Now, Jagdish Uncle, since we are talking to you, we obviously have to talk about Gokul as well. You have been one of the founding members of Gokul, the person who has set up the entire system in Mumbai as well, right? So if you don't mind me asking, how did it transform? Like, I'm sure you have seen Gokul from day one till what it is today.
Yeah. Really from day one, because, when we were young, we started going to Gokul from since we were young. See, it all started with the parents' commitment to our culture, our community, our heritage. They were migrants, but when migrants come to a new land, they like to retain and practice their values and heritage, and so there was tremendous sense of community those days. And we used to get together, and we used to see how the elders interacted with each other with respect, how they set aside money towards building up of an institution. True. Even though they were not in great
positions.
Well, they did it. And this also, then there was the religious aspect about Gokul having the Krishna Mandir, and my father became an active community member and then became eventually a president of Gokul. At that time, one of his colleagues, his name was Mr. Sharma, suggested that we should have a youth wing, And then, because those days I was involved with Toastmasters Club, as an active. This was during when I was between 17 to 21, or that age period. I think 16, 17, something like that. I got involved. And we were amongst the first few who wrote the charter for the youth wing. And then we did some programs when I was there. Then I eventually moved out to I was at that time 18 or 19, because then I moved to IIM Calcutta for studies, So I realized that during the time, which from the time we, inaugurated the Gokul Youth Wing till I went, and of course, they continued much. There were many good youth wingers who did a lot of good work after that. But during the period I was there, we used to invite people for speaking to us on different subjects, like the way you are doing now, inviting us to speak to an audience similarly. And I extended the benefit I received from Toastmasters Club to Youth Wing. So it was a very interesting experience. And we have a lot of good youth wingers who did very well even thereafter, bringing in some intercollegiate programs and having some great fun fairs and things like that.
I know a lot of personality building activities also were taken care of back then.
Even now, Sankit, the kind of talent we have. See, Priyanjali herself is a great dancer. The talent
100%.
we have in the group. We wanted to set up a band, and I found that there were 4 or 5 very, very good people within our youth community, vocal community, who are really good musicians, So there is talent available. I think the idea is we should try and bring them all together. But that was the motivation even then.
True. Yeah. The ideology hasn't changed since then till now. Right.
No. I think it is what I was mentioning the other day. Gokul should be seen as a platform for you to develop yourself.
100%. Yeah.
So if Gokul can offer you that platform, what better to ask than to, what better you can have? You can't have anything better than that. There is a platform available for you to develop personally. So I think everybody should try and encourage this.
100%. Any suggestions you have for us, since you were one of the founder members of the Youth Wing?
Yeah.
Any suggestions you have for us to, involve more and more youngsters in the same activity?
See, I think it's the president's dream to build an institution which is going to be really useful to the next generation. He has a vision of, and his vision is coming true. There's a new building coming up, new infrastructure coming up, which is essentially to be future ready, And what I would think that the youth wingers should do is try and maximize the opportunity, here that is available, to use this huge institution as a platform for their personal development and growth.
Yes.
By coming together and performing community activities or group activities which can develop themselves further. So, you have a generation now which is trying to build an institution which is future ready. I think all our members, children, or this generation of, the young generation, should really take advantage of this great situation that we are in, by involving themselves with Gokul activities. So there is something to be given to receive, If you want 100%. To receive the benefit of future, you have to give something. And that is, give your time, do what you can for Gokul today, so that you are in charge of your future tomorrow.
Exactly. Great. I'm glad that you're bringing this perspective also into picture, because the major issue that we also face with respect to bringing youngsters in is that they had a completely different picture of Youth Wing or Gokul in general, where they thought we only conduct religious activities over here. But since you mentioned that this is more of a personality development activity, it's more of a personality development platform. That's
in
what
fact, Sanket, I can promise you, if Gokul Youth Wingers, this is a promise I can keep. There are other people who can keep other promises, but one promise I can keep is, if Priyanjali, yourself and your team can bring in more Gokul youth members, I can help you in charting out programs which are value addition programs for personality growth.
100%.
Yeah, but it will be in the context of our Gokul.
100%.
What I'm saying is the context shouldn't be forgotten, because we also have to give something to Gokul to get something out of it. So that is very important.
That's always going to be there. Great. So Jagdish Uncle, on a final note, if you probably want to address the audience on something, because if you see in these trying times, people have become very uncertain about what the future also holds for them. I'm sure, as you also mentioned, there have been crises in the past for you as well. You have gone through all of them. And through this also, I see you smiling. I don't see you sulking at all. Right. So what advice would you probably give the people to go through such trying times and still come out victorious at the end of it, especially the youngsters?
See, Yeah. See, I can only share experiences because,
Yes.
giving advice is a bigger responsibility, but I share experiences. And what I think is, it's important that you should not see, there is a very interesting statement which our Prime Minister made when he was addressing the Olympians, our Indian Olympians, when they returned back. He said, let success not go to your head, and let the failure don't let it not touch your hearts.
Yes.
So, when you are going through a crisis, I think the most important thing is let it not depress you. And I think youngsters are very apprehensive about the future because it's become uncertain suddenly, But this is a phase. This is a passing phase. And I want to assure every young person who is kind of in a crisis about the future, just wait it out. You recover yourself mentally first. You build your strength mentally. Then, as I said, then you rebuild. Then if you have lost something, do something else to build it. Think with your mind, as His Holiness said. Think with your mind, rebuild, and then rethink and repurpose. Think about something else, or think about something that you want to do, which has a new purpose.
Yes.
And I think if you are able to do that, and one more thing, if you start your day by saying, I'm still better off than someone who is not even as fortunate, actually it will bring a ray of hope in your mind, and that's true. When you get up in the morning, if your sight is far enough to see, you'll see someone who's not even half as fortunate as you are.
That's true.
So that should give you the strength to not only recover yourself, but to also help him or her.
Yeah.
And what I notice is some of the people who are most resilient, are the people who are doing things for others today. And so I only think that let us not worry too much about this phase. Let us think with our mind. Let us repurpose our energy. And most importantly, let's not get depressed.
Yes.
Actually depressed has to go on a vacation. It cannot be with you.
For sure, for sure. One thing I understood from this is patience is a virtue. I think you just need to be patient at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Patient with a certain resilience,
Yes.
You have got to build some strengths with patience.
For sure, for sure. Jagdish Uncle, there were a few questions from the audiences as well. So one question is from a person named Srinivas Rao, if I'm not wrong. Yes. So basically, he had a question with respect to your education system itself, right? Where his question was, there's also a problem of political interference, right? Where the education system has worsened more or less because of political interference that's also there. So what is your take on that entire issue?
See, Srinivas, I am not very sure if there is a context to the question, but with the educational institutes I work with, I work with NETTE, NMIMS, SMVITM. I find that there is no political interference. But if you're talking about basic education, where you're talking about school education, etc., and if you're talking about curriculum being influenced by political thinking or of the present, government or present authorities, then probably it is happening. I do find news when I read that some changes in curriculum is happening. Whatever is justified or not, let's not go into. If you call that political influence, well, probably it is happening, but they may have a very justifiable reason for doing that. But in terms of interference in the decisions of IIM, IIT, etc., it is minimal. I'm not saying there is no interference, but it's quite minimal. IIM and IITs or NITTEs or regional institutes are quite independent. I don't think they see any kind of. This morning, I was attending a exit interview of National Accreditation, NBA, National Board of Accreditation. And I found the entire panel was eminent experts, So there was no political issues at all. So I'm not sure of the context. And maybe if there is a context, then I think I can find an answer. But generally, I don't think there is any interference.
Makes sense. Great. So anyway, Jagdish Uncle, this was a very informative interview. I personally felt that I learned a lot today, right? Majorly with respect to your commitment towards your work. Secondly, the fact that how do you look at the positive side at everything? Throughout this entire interview, I did not hear you cribbing about anything through your journey. You did not talk about any difficulties that you faced or did not regret anything that you have done till now. Every place that you went, you took it by step, right? As you mentioned, you don't compare places as well. You don't compare your past situation to your present, right? So that's what things are basically.
And learning from lessons of taking lessons from mistakes we have made,
Yes.
And the failures, instead of regretting find out what is good about that and what you didn't do right, and then do it right.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's learning more from your experiences and moving forward, right? So I think for a person who's just starting his career, that's like, these are like words written in golden, right?
Thank you. So nice of you to say that. Yeah. No One thing, Sankir, I want to add to what we said. Yeah. See, it's good to have purpose. It's good to have, be very disciplined, etc. But at the end of the day, what is most important according to me is to have the right compass, which shows you the right north
direction. Yes.
Yeah. And that's important. If you have a wrong compass, which is showing you a faulty north, then is a problem.
Exactly. That's the major issue. Great. I will take this opportunity to pass the baton on to Priyanjali, right? I'm sure even she has a couple of words to add on.
Thank you, Sankit. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we have a lot of offline discussion to
100%. There are a lot of things in common over here. I'm for sure going to talk to you more about this.
Thank you.
Right. Yes.
Thank you, Jagdish Uncle, and thank you, Sankeet. In fact, I had a lot of things to add, but Sankeet summed it up so well that I don't know what to say now. But there are a few things that I would like to add, Uncle. Yeah. One is that you threw light on today's India and you highlighted the importance of making a change. And what really stuck with me is that your message on working on the ground instead of blaming others from the comfort of our home. And I think we are all guilty of that. We're all guilty of believing in WhatsApp Baba, and then we just go complaining about everything. And that's exactly what even Sankir said. So I just wanted to repeat that because that really stuck with me. And another thing, Uncle, that I want to talk about on, it's a personal note, but Gokul is an institution for personal development because personally for me, what I am today is all mostly because of Gokul. There are so many senior members and I can't take names because there are so many of them, but they have taken so much effort to build value into us since our very childhood. So we had this Balakala Vrinda and even Sankeert was a part of it. We've been part of so many dramas, all of which had a moral value at the end. So learning all that from such a young age, from being exposed to so many opportunities in terms of performances, it really has shaped me, at least in what I am today. And I'm extremely grateful to Gokul. And I'm sure all youth wingers today are equally grateful to Gokul. And what I would also like to add to Uncle, what you have said is, yes, I believe that we all need to come together. And of course, with the building coming up, hopefully this is the best opportunity for us to come together because we have been gifted with the building. We have been gifted with the infrastructure by Doctor. And I think, I think Sankeet and I, it's a message for both of us too. Let's make some time and go there, spend some time there and build value there for ourselves and for the future generations.
And we'll be helping you in also drawing out the programs. We can do that. Yeah.
Yes.
We definitely would need that.
So, you're going to be the mentors we need.
Yes. Very happily to be around for that.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Keeping it short. So thank you so much, Jagdish Uncle, for giving us your...
I really appreciate your taking the time off and giving me this opportunity to share. Sankeet's questions were very interesting and he had thought over these questions and it gave me an opportunity to express myself. I might have made a few errors, so please excuse me and forgive me. But what I really enjoyed was talking to both of you and the entire team. I must thank the entire team too. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jagdish Uncle. I think the errors were covered up by your smile. Your smile is too infectious.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Sankeet, for conducting the interview so well.
Thank you,
And
Priyanjali, for giving me the opportunity.
thank you. I'd also like to thank Viju Aunty, who has taken time out to support us in every possible way. She's been like a backbone.
So now I know who is the partner in crime.
Yeah.
I would also like to thank our president, Dr. S.S. Rao, the BSKBA Managing Committee, Guru Prasad for all the coordination, the IT help. Thank you, Supriya Udupa, Tanvi Rao, Sri Lakshmi Udupa for your support. This event is not complete without our viewers. Thank you for encouraging BSKBA Youthwing and our speakers. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thank you. See you next Sunday.